So, hi everyone. My name is Stevie Acevedo. I am the curator at the Guild Museum of Arcadia Heritage in Arcadia, California. I am part of the programs committee. I also am a board member of CAM. So, I'm going to go over some housekeeping rules today before we get started with our Lunch and Learn. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to CAM's YouTube following the presentation for your enjoyment of the greater CAM community and the public. You will be emailed a link to view the recording once it's ready for distribution. Captioning is also available via Zoom if requested. To request this, please send an email to engagement@calmuseums.org. And then we will also be using the chat box, which you can find here at the bottom of your screen. When using the chat box, you can send your messages to all participants or privately to the host, which is CAM's programs. I will be monitoring the chat box and ask questions to the presenters at the end of the presentation. Please do not send any questions privately to the presenters because they will not be able to monitor the chat box while they are presenting. I will be sharing the questions with the presenters at the end. If you have any technical issues during the session, please send an email to engagement@calmuseums.org. We will do our best to address it. And as we begin this event, we'd like to acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions. California is home to 150 tribes, and an acknowledgement is just one step towards working with Native communities to build meaningful relationships. Museums and many institutions were founded upon purposeful exclusions and erasures of indigenous peoples and still benefit from settler colonialism and associated harms. CAM is committed to moving beyond land acknowledgement and into action. We encourage all participants to learn about the land they live and work on, to build relationships with local Native communities, and to find tangible ways to celebrate, support, and advocate alongside them. We invite you to learn more about the original stewards in your area. Some helpful resources include State of California Native American Heritage Commission and Native Land Digital. Links will be available in the chat for both resources. And I live and work in the traditional territory of the Tongva people. So in today's Lunch and Learn, we are learning about reframing visitor service experience through employee experience. I'll pass it along to our speakers now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. We really appreciate all of you taking time out of your day to be with us. To do a little warm up in the chat, if you would please put in your non-negotiable pizza topping. This is a very important question. We get a wide variety of answers. Some are more controversial than others. Right now we got mushrooms leading the chat. Pineapple, there, yep, there's a controversial one. Always pineapple. I'm also in the pineapple boat. Onions, okay. Ooh, bacon. Olives. I'm not an olive pizza person, but I like olives alone. It's weird. It's a weird thing. All right, not too many controversial ones. I like that. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We can advance that slide. So what are we here to talk about today? So we are looking at how your employee experience affects your visitor experience and vice versa. So how those two things connect and affect one another. Now we have three panelists, myself included, all from the greater Sacramento area, and we are going to be looking at this through a lens of what our challenges are with this, what we have tried, what has worked, and what hasn't. So we're going to be airing all of our dirty laundry today, so you're welcome. Hopefully that you'll be able to learn something from it and be able to institute some of those ideas and changes in your institution. All right, so we'll start off with a couple stats here. So according to the American Alliance of Museums, and as we all know as museum professionals, this connection is very important. Staff interactions can heavily affect visitor experience, and we know this, but it was interesting to see just how heavily they affect them. So a positive staff interaction can double guest satisfaction, increase a return by 70-80%, and triple the chance that they will recommend and or come back to the museum. So the stats are huge. Conversely, they also affect the other way. So visitor interactions can heavily affect how staff view their job and their experience working for museums. So 30% higher guest satisfaction, 40% lower turnover. That's the big one, right? A lot of us see a lot of turnover end over end. Um, and so 70% of those staff report that as their main source of why they work in museums, and that's huge. So, how can we create this experience that is both beneficial for our staff and beneficial for our guests? So, we are going to get into that today. And we're going to start by airing all of our dirty laundry and talking about our issues. So, I'm going to let Carly kick that off, and she's going to talk all about her issues.
There you go. Unmute. Too many things on my screen. Hi, everybody. So I am Carly Starr. I am the Special Projects Manager at the California State Railroad Museum Foundation. I ended up working on employee engagement because it started out actually as a partnership, and that's part of my special projects. I'm also part of the managerial team at the museum, but I'm a foundation employee with our two organizations. So I'm one of the two people that can go back and forth. So that's how I got involved in this. Of course, I think we're all special here. But one of the ways that I think that our museum is special specifically is that we're located in Old Sacramento, which is a tourist district. We have a high number of visitors. And we also have two different organizations that help make everything happen with state parks and our nonprofit cooperating foundation. Within state parks specifically, we have something called seasonal staff, which is from basically like parks. When you go camping, parks may only be open seasonally. And so these staff have a limited number of hours and no benefits. So that's something that we deal with. We have multiple reporting locations, our offices, our collections facility, our shops for the trains, our train station. We also operate the historic railroad, which comes with its own federal regulations. And then, like probably many of you, we get a lot of students on field trips that impacts our staff. And then every holiday season, we have the Polar Express train ride that also really has a big impact on our staff. So a couple of things that we were able to do is really lucky in February of 2024, we were invited to be part of a free professionally run survey. We're very lucky to be able to do that. This company was trying to fit into the museum field. They worked in zoos and aquariums previously. And then instead, what we have, we were able, I'm sorry, there's a phone ringing in my background and I need to deny that. I don't know how. Okay, I'm just gonna have to power through. I think it's a Teams call. And so we were able to get some takeaways out of this survey. We had about 2/3 of our staff across State Parks and Foundation respond. And we found that people really enjoy the work they do. Yay! But we also had some big problems. We needed to improve communication, and a lack of promotion opportunity really hurts our staff. So we were able to do another survey in January 2025. This was distributed a little differently. There was less time to complete. It was really soon. It was less than 12 months later. And we had a lot less people respond. But we did see a lot of decreases in the survey. We have decreases in statements like, I feel like I belong here. This museum is committed to providing equal opportunity to all employees. I would recommend this museum as a great place to work, and I feel energized by my job. Those all decreased. So that is bad. So we have different thoughts on it, maybe expectations. It was really soon after that first survey. We didn't finish making enough changes. Some things we can't change, like state park staffing. But we did see also real increases and some really important ones around immediate manager. We think the term immediate manager was clear on the survey. The biggest increases were on my immediate manager takes an active interest in my growth and development. And in the past 3 months, my immediate manager has taken the time to have a development conversation with me. So the staff that was making the biggest changes initially from that very first survey were seen and making a big impact on the employee roles. But we really want to focus on visitor services, obviously, here. So specifically with that team, obviously a lot of the roles may be familiar with your teams. They, have a lot to do at the front desk, and we're not talking about like Polar Express or our train rides or our volunteers also, which is part of the visitor experience. We're really focusing on the staff that do these types of front desk activities. And a lot of them are this seasonal staff team. There are some permanent staff, but most of them are seasonal, which they're largely students, undergrad or recent graduates, and there's naturally a high turnover. And so this seasonal staff is the only staff that the average visitor ends up interacting with unless they go into the museum store. And so this is such a massive impact on our visitors, and it's obviously very important to the visitor experience. So the challenges specifically with our visitor services department is that it has traditionally kind of like a mental disconnect from the rest of the museum. There was a protection of, because visitor service is so crazy already with the public, there was a need to protect the staff, and that helped kind of create a divide between them. It was a very supportive team that created that separation. And then we have the physical separation as well. You could see on that little map, you have to like go up the stairs, over the ramp, through the library, in the snow to get to our offices. And they're just created a physical separation as well as another mental separation between the two teams, where people don't know what each other are doing. We don't know what visitor service is doing. Visitor service doesn't know what the rest of the team is doing. So visitor services felt really disconnected. They were bored. They were underappreciated, but they also didn't want to do more complex additional tasks. And people are really unhappy with their job prospects. The people are constantly being passed over, and how state parks hiring sometimes works, and that makes it really hard to motivate staff. So this bored and unhappy attitude creates maybe not great body language, or not replenishing the activities on our floor and the activity stations. They're not doing as much engagement when they're doing walkthroughs in the museum, and they're not maybe informing visitors of all the fun opportunities that they can do here. And that just prevents this welcoming, happy to be here atmosphere that we really want our visitors to engage with. So we'll move on to next set of issues.
Okay, that's me. So hello, everybody. I'm Meghan Toland. I'm the Deputy Director at the Sacramento Children's Museum. That's you will tell that we are very into our mascots. So our characters, we have our green guy, Leo, and that's me with Mr. Noodles that I always put in as any reason I can get that picture out there. Okay, the next slide. So our mission at the Sacramento Children's Museum is to spark a passion for lifelong learning. We serve children from birth to age 8, so the littlest visitors here. Most of our visitors are generally under 5 on our on-site programming. So just wanted to give you a little kind of snapshot of some of the activities that we're doing and how hands-on our museum really is. We serve about 2025 numbers, we were about 93,000 visitors a year. Right now, we have about 800 member families, and we have a budget under $1 million. We are not a city or state entity. We are completely separate. So next slide, please. So a little breakdown of our staff. This actually number just changed this past week. Some of my staff is off to some cool adventures, moving to a different country. One just got a full-time job. Very excited for them. So good reasons. Our staff breakdown has shifted. But we currently have 16 instead of the 18. 5 of them are full-time and the rest are part-time. We are open to the public 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday, and our shifts generally are ranging for people from between 5 to 8 hours. We're also staffing at the museum and offsite events. So our staff experience is very hands-on. Children's museums are lucky because we get to touch everything and interact with everything. But it requires a lot from our staff. So on a daily basis, some of our what we call play facilitators, our floor staff, they are always keeping the museum clean and safe. They're engaging with visitors. They're that welcoming face to kids and adults. They're also assisting in leading programming, and they're really making us create that atmosphere where kids can be themselves. So one shift that we noticed was that our employees, our part-time employees in particular, for years it was 6 months moving on, because we get a lot of students and there was unexpected high turnover. The past several years, that has completely shifted for us. So with that has brought an interesting set of challenges. So it began to become clear that people were feeling a little bit more disengaged or frustrated. They had known some people for a long time, and sometimes there was conflict that maybe started over something small and then just kind of simmered. Morale was going down a little bit. But to be clear, the experience that the visitors were getting was still being delivered in a way that was up to our museum standards. But there was definitely an underlying source of frustration. So we knew that we noticed there was more gossip, there was a distinct cliques, kind of a general grumpiness a lot of times, and just a lot of burnout. So we knew that we needed to do something. So those were our main issues at the Children's Museum. Christie, you're up.
All right, so again, I'm Christie Dentry. I oversee our Utility Exploration Center, which is just outside of Sacramento in the suburbs of Roseville, California. And we are kind of a one-of-a-kind science center that takes you behind the scenes of your utility system. So what happens when you flush the toilet? Where's your drinking water come from? Where's your garbage go? All of those fun topics. And so our issues started from a remodel. We are a small but mighty team. So we have 4 full-time, 7 part-time, and about 30 volunteers. We also have, I guess, 1 more full-time to add to that, but they are not permanent, so I don't really count them until they get permanent. But we're small but mighty. But with that, we went through an entire remodel. So we took our entire museum down to the studs. At that time, we had about 50% of our floor staff were brand new. And prior to me getting here, the onboarding customer service training was kind of piecemeal. So I took it upon myself at this point as we remodeled to kind of do a reset. Now, with that, we had a little tiny jump in attendance. So since the remodel, and these are from last year, and don't worry, I have updated numbers for you. It got worse or better. I mean, if you like a lot of people. But basically, we had in 1 year a 20,000 person jump in attendance, and then a 30,000 person jump in total people served across all of our programs. Now this year, 2 years into the fact, we increased 25K in attendance and did a 42,000 person jump served across all programs. So that happened in 1 year with no increase in staff. So to say that there was a little bit of burnout is an understatement. We were just not used to that number of people and that capacity for our center. And yes, that is a full-on garbage truck on our exhibit floor. So that added to the attendance increase for sure. All right, so in the chat, we would like you to share some of your issues, and we hope that we address some of them in our next section, which we'll be going through what worked and what didn't. And we're going to be, brutally honest in, what works and what has not worked in each of our organizations. So feel free to enter in some of your issues.
We can kind of chat about it if people have anything in there. Anything sound familiar or something different than what we've had? There is an option to be anonymous, I think, too. So we have someone who's saying that they've had gossip and promotional opportunities, or lack of promotional opportunities, so those sound familiar to them. Sustainability of workloads. that's something that we'll see happen for me specifically later as well. Staff feeling uncomfortable. That's interesting. I don't know if there's more details on that one. And then we'll have another opportunity to talk about solutions. So if people have ideas that they think about as solutions that might help somebody that you see in the chat, save that for later too. Call out rate for small teams, definitely have that issue. Few opportunities for upper mobility. You know, we're all in the same boat here a little bit. So hopefully we can have some fun tips and help each other out too. Lack of communication between visitor services and other departments. Yeah, a lot of different things with growth. So yeah, very understandable. Okay, so feel free to keep putting those things in because then maybe our other people in the chat will be able to share insight after we shared ours too. So we'll all learn as a community together here. We'll jump right in. Is that okay timing wise? Good on your end? Yeah. Okay, so here's some of the things that we have done, at least at the Railroad Museum. So initially, after doing those surveys, the very first survey, the very first thing we did was reinstate all staff meetings. We'll review the results and then we instated all staff meetings. The very first one was just a couple of weeks after that first survey. We now do them about 3 times a year with all staff from Foundation and State Parks. And it's really been a team effort to make these different kinds of changes. So our staff meetings, we keep getting better at them. We reviewed the results. That was massively important both times that we did that as soon as possible. And we also focus our staff meetings on learning other departments. So we've done special presentations on different activities with different departments and getting hands-on and getting to know the people and what they do. We have learned from us, people do not like mixed seating. We used to have people grab a number and then go and find a spot. They do not like that, but we really want to help prevent the siloing as much as possible. As I mentioned earlier, individual managers are doing great. This is an ongoing thing for them to do with their individual teams. We're also trying to improve communication up and down. And one example way, in addition to staff meetings in the managers, is we have an internal newsletter that used to be sent out just to volunteers. And now we've changed the content and how it's distributed. So it's much more relevant. So everybody is in the know about random small things. And if they want to know, they hopefully know where to go or they don't have an excuse not to. And I'll also talk a little bit more about that job shadow swap that we instituted in a minute. So the feedback on the surveys was really positive generally. I was basically that guy in the Onion article there that went around and talked to staff casually because I kind of float between the different teams and I kept our conversations anonymous and just was like, hey, how's it going? But I got to know that people really liked the surveys. My favorite response was that someone said that the survey results said the quiet part out loud for the parts that didn't do very well. I also got that the staff meetings were a little more varied. There's no one size fits all on responding to things. For example, for the staff meetings, one person said, it's a waste of time to do the activities. I know everyone I need to know. But someone else told me meetings were beneficial to meet people and the games help with that. So, you know, you do the best with what you can. You're not going to make everybody happy all the time, but trying to have a variety of options. People did really want us to focus on less on the positive results. When we first got that first survey, we're like, wow, it's actually not as bad as we thought. People didn't like that. They wanted to be acknowledged about what was happening and address that critical feedback. So it was really important that the survey was completely anonymous. The third party was great, but the anonymous part, as opposed to a regular, like, you know, review with your staff, annual review or something, the anonymous part was really what people loved about it. Generally, they felt that there's been change, but we need more. And you really need someone to champion this. So that has become me in this department. But my colleagues have said it's really important that I have been championing this. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. So specifically within visitor services, a lot of this work has been done by different colleagues of mine in the management of visitor services. And they've made a lot of changes depending on different staff over the time. One of the biggest ones is we have a presence of high-level staff in our morning briefings, and that has been huge. It really has raised the bar and expectations, we think, of the visitor services staff. They like getting the info direct from the high-level staff. They know more that they're valued, and it's really improved communication chains up and down, especially things like getting the wheelchair lifts fixed, and things like that. The project assignments has been a little bit more of a mixed bag. What we had tried over the last 6 months actually was doing slow day cards, where they have different kind of tasks on a card, but it really became competitive and people are focusing on menial like cleaning tasks to be able to get more stars on the chart. And so we do have a new supervisor in our visitor services just in the last month. And so she's really working on creating more interpretive projects. And then she can also help manage that oversight. We tried to, like, if I tried to assign a project historically to visitor services, there was always historically a misunderstanding of who was going to help supervise and provide oversight for that project. So that's going to be tightened up so we can improve that diversity of work. There was a priority in transparency in meetings, which is really important for understanding like our budget and why decisions are being made at the higher level, even like with the state budget. So that has been really beneficial for the team to understand that and how it impacts their work and vice versa. And then there's also been changes around expectations in the workplace that maybe are not as welcomed by the team. But we're kind of considering this a short-term pain for long-term gain. When I first did this presentation in March, we were right in the thick of all the pain, and I think we're on the other side now, hopefully. People who didn't, there's multiple people who've left and new people are coming in, so we can kind of set these expectations, things like the uniform standards, the structure for the day, reading at the front desk, showing up on time, has really been changing. We've really adapted these expectations and laying it out at the beginning, understanding that these are a lot of times people's first office job or first job ever. And then our job shadow swap that we did last summer was amazing. People would come from one office and then go down, two people would go down to visitor services, learn about visitor services, and then vice versa. Two people from visitor services would come up into our collections or curatorial or like exhibits offices and learn about each other and just kind of chat and see them in action. It was really successful. We want to do it again, but this is where my capacity came in and we were not able to do it again this summer. So hopefully as we're hiring more staff, we'll be able to. So results of all of this so far, we have seen anecdotally that staff has been more attentive to the public. They've been a lot more informed and therefore more likely to inform the public about our programs and events. They're asking follow-up questions in our meetings to make sure they know what's going on and just generally more present, including showing up. But we do have more to do. We have a new director that's coming on. The job is posted and open. So we really want to improve leadership presence on a regular basis in the museum. We really want to keep going with not hiding behind the positives, acknowledging those systemic problems, understanding that when people come and get started on this job, they know what to expect and lack of, like what we cannot offer, that this job has value, even if it's temporary, that we might be preparing them more for their next job. And so the lack of job advancement, just make sure that people are more aware of that. So we're also going to start developing more like skill building and workplace development. That's going to take some of our staff time, but we think that's really important for the museum and also just a nice thing to do for people. And then develop a shift on rotation so that not everybody's necessarily on the register all the time, maybe have more opportunities for engagement with and interpretive stuff on the floor, unless they really want to be on the register. So having conversations around that. And then we're also talking about maybe doing another survey, maybe within the next couple of months, but probably we'll wait till after we get a new museum director. All of this doesn't mean that we're getting perfect. We have so much more improving to do. We really need to keep receiving that critical feedback. So this is a continuous and iterative process that, we're now in multiple years into this process.
Okay, so we just kept kind of pondering, how can we improve our employee experience here at the Children's Museum? We know that our staff makes our museum experience special. It sets us apart from other maybe just play spaces. So not only are we doing educational activities, our staff is really, really fantastic at what they do. So, but how can we make them happier at work and, want to keep staying around? So I just wanted to pull a couple quotes. These are actual reviews we got about different staff. We get, honestly, the reviews that we get, the positive reviews that we get, which we get a lot of, I would say 80% of them mention staff. So we know we want to keep our visitors and our staff happy. So I just wanted to call out some of these great reviews that we get and comments we get, because it's always nice to know how people appreciate you. So we had to make some changes. We're still learning, and we definitely were asking a lot of questions, and we actually made an effort to listen to the answers. So we knew that we needed to take some action. And so what we did, our first step was we contacted an HR consultant. We don't have an in-house HR, and we had them do a listening tour. So what that means is that she met with everyone individually in a private space, actually even outside of the museum. We're across the street from City Hall, so we were able to use one of their meeting rooms. So people didn't even know who was being interviewed. So it was really made people comfortable answering the questions, and saying things to someone who they didn't already know. It wasn't their boss. So once we did that listening tour, then we had to listen to the results. And that was a really interesting experience. We learned some great things, really positive things, and our issues were called out in a way that I think we all knew were there, but it made it even clearer. So that was fantastic. So after we did our listening tour, we had to continue and make those changes. So one of the first things I did is we looked at every single person's job description, updated as needed, but had conversations with each employee about their job description, wanted their input, and made sure that they were engaged in that. Because to be honest, this may have been the first time that some of the employees even did see their job description, which has changed drastically now. And we had to also think about what we wanted our staff to look like. Our museum may not be the greatest fit for every staff member, but that doesn't mean that they are not a great museum employee. They just might not be the best museum employee for us. So we did have to also think about and start kind of making a plan to potentially have to make some of those tough decisions. All right, my next slide. So we did implement even more changes. I just wanted to highlight some of our staff because our pictures are so cute. We also contracted with an HR consultant. We have one. I meet with her monthly. She's fantastic. She comes in and does different trainings for everybody now. We have the resources on our just a phone call away. And for a small organization, this has been game-changing. It really has made a really positive impact in not only my confidence with how we want to deal with different both positive and negative things with staff, but it's also really made staff feel more confident in how we're moving forward. We've also implemented some really easy changes. We do morning and afternoon huddles before every shift and the end of every shift. Just it can be 2 minutes. Hey, this is happening today, or just want to make sure we all know who's on shift today. Something very simple, or it can be, take a little bit longer. We have also instituted one-on-one check-in meetings. So with a manager. So really intentional meetings where you're sitting down and you have dedicated time. Sometimes those, and we're switching out which director you're meeting with. So 1 month you might be meeting with the executive director, another month you might be meeting with me. And it's been great because we have some people that, okay, everything's fine. Others, they want to, I always ask, like, what's something really amazing that you've done at work that you don't feel like anyone has noticed lately? And I've been getting some really fantastic stories about just interactions with guests. So I've really enjoyed those. And then we did end up making the decision to exit out an employee after, and sometimes you have to make those hard decisions. And it has honestly shifted perspective for a lot of people in a positive way. And then ultimately, one of the other really big things we did is we looked at what benefits we could offer, because we are small and financially are not able to do as much as, county jobs or something like that. So we decided to implement a work anniversary holiday for all employees. So it's a paid day off that you get to take the month of your work anniversary. So that has been really well received. Staff has loved that. We make a big deal out of it. We have a board in our break room that every month we put whose anniversaries are there. We let them choose which day they want to take off. Because we've had so many long-term part-time employees that really enjoy the job, and they don't accrue vacation time. So this has been fantastic. People have really appreciated that. And then we also have a healthcare reimbursement benefit that we made the decision to extend to everybody. So as long as you are maintaining your required 12 hours a week, or 12 hours a pay period, you are still eligible for our healthcare reimbursement benefit. And that has been really well received. We have staff have been really excited about that. We've also learned through these different conversations that our staff is not a big fan of like, hey, everybody, we're going to go to a baseball game together, or we're going to do this. They enjoy being around each other, and some people are really good friends, but it's that forced hangout that was not being seen as appreciation or recognition at all. So we have tried to find different ways to recognize people in a way that makes them happy. I'm going to have one more slide. This was us on Halloween recently. That's a huge day for us, and we have about 800 people come through and trick or treat, and our staff goes all out. So I just wanted to share this fun picture, but also to kind of wrap everything up. These changes have really increased staff's comfort level with bringing questions, concerns, positive things to their managers or to directors. And we've noticed a lot of increased engagement in programming in terms of, oh, I've got this great idea. Can I work with the education team and we can figure out how we can implement it? And just an uptick in morale. So we definitely still have issues. I don't know that there'll ever be a time when our workplace doesn't have some frustration. But we have taken steps. We're happy to keep taking those steps and get a lot of feedback from our staff. So that's just kind of how we have figured out little steps to bring that employee experience up and keep our visitor experience at a high as well.
All right, so for me, I just want to preface this with, I normally teach this content in about a 4-hour workshop. So if it seems as though I'm rushing through this, I am, but at the end of this presentation, there's a QR code and you will get all of these pieces, as well as you can contact me afterwards and I can walk you through anything. So again, we're looking at how do we create this exceptional experience for both our visitors and our employees. And so for us, I really had to define what experience meant for us. And so for us, it is service plus engagement. And this is a photo of an example of an experience. So we participate in a trunk or treat event every year. It is not through us, it's through Parks and Rec, and we participate as just a quote unquote vendor. So, the objective is you get a car and decorate a trunk and hand out candy. Well, that setting was not worthy for the experience that we like to create. So I invited every utility truck out. We created a Monsters Inc. Takes over Roseville Utilities theme, and now we are the highlight of the event. So how can we define this experience and how can we create this experience for our guests and our employees? Next slide, please. So for the service part of it, we created these elements of customer service, and they're pretty straightforward. What the top part bolded is what it looks like, and what the bottom part is what it feels like. I don't have time to read through them all. Again, you're going to get this resource at the end. But we thought our core elements of customer service that were super important to us were, of course, safety, first, last, and always. The essential part of customer service, which is courtesy. I am the optics queen, and now my staff are my optics minions. So that is very important to us, that everything on floor is ready at all times, basically. Inclusion is huge to us, so we want to be that welcoming space. We want to be that safe place for our guests and our employees, and then, of course, doing our job efficiently. So those are the elements of customer service. That is how we treat our customer. The next part of this is how we engage with them. So again, top part is what it feels like, bottom part is what it looks like. I added in those words because it makes it super easy when you're training your staff. If they have an idea of, okay, what does welcoming really feel like? Oh, it's comfortable, it's belonging, it's being valued. Okay. And then what does that look like? Smiling, making eye contact, keeping everything clean and show ready type thing. So these are the way that we engage with our guests. We welcome them. We tune into what they need. So anticipating their needs, engaging them to the level that they want to be engaged with. The interaction, again, it's that opting in. I'm always telling staff, don't stand in the corner and watch. I want you to opt into the activity. If they are playing with the rigamajig, you're on the floor playing with them. Or you are with a guest answering a question about garbage trucks or something that they're interested in. So always opt in. The interpretation part is what we're best at, right? Connecting our story and the content to people's lives. And then the wow factor. So one of the things that's been super popular with both our guests and our staff is our wow drawer. So if we have a guest that is having a bad day or is maybe crying because they can't get in the garbage truck for the 50th time because it's time to go have lunch or snack or go pick up brother, we have a wow drawer that staff can open and pull out any number of things to try and turn the frown upside down, in other words. So it's a lot of stickers, it's a lot of little tiny giveaways, but it makes sure that the guest ends their experience on a positive note, even if they are in tears because they have to leave. Next. All right. And for staff, this is the most important piece. So this is how we treat each other. And we have museum values, we have city values, we have department values, but these values we came up with ourselves. And so with the leadership team, we had created drafts. We asked all of the part-time team, they all had input in this. And these are the values that we created together. And we live them. And my staff can recite them because they mean something to them. And that's the important piece. All of this stuff can go on the wall, but if you don't live and breathe it and use it, it's not going to work. So next. So this is the thing that goes on the wall for us. So because we are a science museum, we wrap this in a nice little bow, and it looks like the periodic table of elements. So again, on the left, how we treat our customer, in the middle, how we engage with them, and on the right, how we treat each other as employees. And Disney had a great quote about culture, plaster it all over the walls and scream it down the halls. And so this is what we plaster on the walls. But the most important piece is that we live through these elements. And if you hit the next slide, these have become part of our recognition program. So I have created little business sized cards of these. I'm looking around my desk to see if I have one. Little business sized cards of these. And we recognize each other based on these elements. So if somebody has just had a great interaction with a guest, a coworker, a supervisor, anybody can write one of these cards and give it to that employee. And then once they receive the cards, they put it on our board, which is in our office hallway. And before each staff meeting, we put them in a witch's cauldron. Yes, I don't know why it's witch's cauldron, but we put them in a witch's cauldron and then we draw them out and they are able to pick swag from a pirate's treasure chest. Again, these are things that are important to my staff. These are things that they wanted and that motivate them. It's going to be different for everybody. But because we recognized based on them, we live, eat, and breathe this. Okay, this has become a part of our standard. It has become a part of who we are as a team. And so it has really turned things around and made it so that we all are working off of the same playbook. Next slide for me. So in the chat, now is your time to put any solutions that you might have. While you are putting in those solutions, this is also the opportunity to ask any questions. And we have one more slide after this. This is our contact information. So if you have any questions on anything that you've heard from any of us, all of us are happy to answer those via email. Also, if you scan this QR code, it will take you to a Google folder that has a lot of the resources from today. So at this point, Stevie, if you'd like to facilitate any questions we might have gotten, and you guys are still welcome to add questions into the chat.
Absolutely. I haven't seen any questions yet, so I'll wait a couple minutes and see if anybody has anything for our presenters.
Or also things to share, like the solutions that you guys have done. I know when we presented this at CAM, I got great ideas from the audience too. So we really want this to be like a community where we're learning together. These are things that we've tried and worked in. So we want to hear from everybody too.
So it looks like there is one question. I'm curious if your institution's membership department is housed under visitor service and what that relationship looks like. Who would like to take that one?
Oh, there, Q&A. Did see it.
Well, first, I'm flattered you think we have a membership department. Our membership is, we have one membership and reservation specialist who manages our membership team and our membership program. And we do consider it part of the visitor services because we do have a dedicated member hour every day that we're open. And so we do like to have our membership specialist be that person that is at the front desk and is welcoming people in, because we're a children's museum, so we see a lot of repeat members. But our museum's not big enough to have actual teams.
We do have a separate membership and visitor services because of the nature of it being a state park. Visitor services is the state park function and membership is fundraising. So that's part of our foundation. So it has to be different teams. But we do have a membership staff person that actually sits at our visitor services desk. And so they work well together. They know each other. And our visitor services team is trained to do like the basic membership check-ins if staff isn't there. Membership teams often pop into our morning briefings also, even though they're different staff and different teams. So we're kind of weird in that way, but we do want to, it is really important that they're integrated and work next to each other, but we require them to be different teams.
So for us, all of our staff are considered visitor service. So even our interpretive and educational staff, anybody that interacts with a guest at any time is considered a visitor service. And that's how we train them. So every staff, when they are onboarded, they receive both an interpretation training and a guest service training. And the majority of that guest service training is what I went over. But we have an entire training plan for their year that they're handed on their first day. And it includes those two trainings as well as quarterly trainings. So we don't differentiate because the customer can walk up to any one of them at any time. And our customers are considered people that walk into the museum, people in the classroom that we give our school tours to, all of that. So there's no differentiation there.
You all do have a comment and a question in the ideas Dropbox that staff can use for internal structure and visitors programs. Ideas would be very helpful. So thank you for sharing that. And then we have a question. Can you speak to the resistance within staff to change the cliques that existed? Do they still exist?
Speak to the resistance of the cliques. Is that what you said? Okay. So I want to make sure I'm respectful to everyone that was involved in this situation. So obviously in any workplace, people are going to get along better with, you know, some people, and we don't expect everyone to be best friends. We expect everyone to be respectful and kind to each other. And one of our main issues ended up being from the source of one of these cliques. You have seen the movie Mean Girls or been a teenage girl, you probably have experienced something like that. It was shockingly similar. There was a lot of resistance from those people. Honestly, as we started implementing changes that were making people happier, certain people were getting more upset. And then we ultimately, somebody, you know, we had two people choose to leave because they weren't ready to, I mean, really weren't ready to kind of accept those changes and make shifts. And that's a choice that anyone can make. It's really difficult to make changes when you do have people that are so extremely resistant. And I have found, at least in our situation, putting the expectations out there and that they're for everybody, there might be someone in your organization that just will not budge, and hopefully they will make a choice that's better for them and the organization, because it doesn't sound like it would be the best place for anyone for them to be.
And I can reiterate.
That's my experience.
Yeah, I can emphasize that with the we didn't have the click problem necessarily, but still that resistance to change when we were changing workplace expectations, and we did have a lot of people leave in and it was hard, very hard until we were able to hire some new ones. But I think that it's for the long-term good of the organization and for the staff that they can move on to a job that fits them better and that they're happy at.
Yeah, one thing that really helped with that was creating those staff values. So when we created staff values as a team, and even one of those values became one team, it really helped to unify us as a group. And of course, you know, not everybody hangs out outside of work, and that nobody's, you know, best friends per se, but they recite one team to each other all the time. And so having that common language, common playbook can help alleviate some of those issues.
One person said museum clicks are not fetch, and I love that. Just have to make sure everybody saw that. But there was the comment that came up earlier about the Dropbox for ideas, and there was some other at a conference or something that I saw, and I think it was for exhibit development, but it was like just in the employee area where they had a big board with post-it notes for as they're developing a new exhibit, they would put these ideas up. But I've always wanted to do that also for employee engagement. So we did have like Google Sheets and stuff, but people never actually fill them out. So I think along that idea would be maybe doing more tactile with post-it notes could be another option. It might be harder to be anonymous in that situation. I don't have the answer, but just a thought when I saw that comment.
Yeah, we do have a shared folder that staff use for those types of things, and it has been really helpful.
One thing to keep in mind for like a Dropbox or anything like that, if you have, obviously everyone's museum is different, but if you are like for us, not every employee has a staff email because their job is like their job does not necessarily require email communications. So sometimes asking employees to fill out an online form or do things, it's not going to be the best because if not everyone has a work email and uses that. So that's just one thing to be cognizant about because I have learned that. So just to think about.
There was a comment someone in the chat said earlier about particularly that management is not interested in program ideas or concerns, maybe around engagement, I think is what they're saying, with all these other problems of upward mobility. Everything that person said sounds very familiar to me. And the biggest thing I can say is that our survey, doing that outside survey was so helpful. I know not everybody's going to have that same opportunity. So if there's some way you can invent that opportunity, maybe, if there's another museum that you can swap running surveys with so they help remain anonymous. When we're talking about doing one internally, we're thinking about having like our district level staff that's separated from the museum help us run it. We haven't asked them yet. So if you're on, please say yes. But if there's a way you could kind of create that, because that gave the hard data of where those problems may live. And even though they focused on the problem, the upper management and our directors and CEOs and everything, they still saw those negative responses. And I think that was really helpful to help motivate them to do some different types of changes, both in the foundation and state parks. So that's my main piece of advice because that's what helped us.
We started with an employee experience map. So, some of you may be familiar with guest services experience mapping, but we took our employees from the time that they even thought about applying online to the time where they leave us for this new fabulous full-time job. And they mapped out their experience along the way and rated it. So we had each of them rate it. So, what was the application process like? What was your onboarding like? And they would put happy face, sad face, meh face stickers. And so we were able to take that information and then build this program based off of those results. Again, that is another session that I lead that's at least 2 hours long, if not more. So if you're interested in that, I can share that resource with you and go over that with you. But it really helped highlight where some of our issues were.
So we have one more question if you guys want to answer it. In the chat we have, how did you all get buy-in from leadership to take the steps to understand employee experiences? And I think you've kind of touched a little bit on that today.
Yeah, I showed them the data from that experience mapping and just really ran with this new program. And we tried it and there were multiple iterations. It's not like this big fancy periodic table was our first iteration. We had, lots of starts and stops and tries, and this is what it's ended up being. But yeah, it's just trying to create that experience, which then has such a major effect on how our guests receive us.
I also think going in addition to having the data, which definitely helps, going in with a bit of a plan, and having other cohorts at maybe your management level to be on board with that plan so that we could say, this is what we're doing. It's going to work with our capacity. Here's the data of why we need it. Here's how we're going to do it. I think is also a good way to take action because, I mean, when we agreed to do the survey, we knew we had to do some action. But I've been able to kind of keep pushing every year for some of this change. Within visitor services specifically, it was a little bit easier because it's public and people are able to see that the change was needed. Some of the other departments are actually harder because it isn't front and center and it's much more complex with more complex hiring things. But it doesn't mean it's not important that we need to keep moving forward. So it's just trying to make a plan and advocate for it with as many allies as you can is what has worked for me.
I think too, if you are it's intimidating, sometimes bringing things to leadership. If you have a direct supervisor who maybe still isn't the one that would ultimately make the decision, maybe have that conversation with them too. Start that conversation, plant that seed, because usually it's going to take, sadly it takes us a while to get things kind of going, but if you start planting that seed with someone you're comfortable talking with about it, that's where I would begin.
All right, well, we've hit the 1 o'clock mark. So again, thank you so much for being here with us and being engaged and asking so many questions. Again, our contact information is there along with the QR code. So if you have any questions as you mull this over a little bit more, feel free to contact any one of us. But thank you to Cam and to Stevie and Tiana for leading this great opportunity. And we'll hope you be at the next one.
Yeah. And if you're ever in Sacramento, come see our museums.
Thanks, everyone. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This talk is recorded, so we'll be sending out the link later on if you would like a refresher and get some more notes on what our speakers talked about today. But thank you, Meghan, Christie, and Carly, for doing such an amazing job and being very open about your own personal experiences in the museum field. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and enjoyed this lunch and learn today, and hope to see you all soon.